Hi, my name is Sasha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be announcing the giveaway winner. That'll be at the end of the video. But I'm also going to be talking about the books that I read while I was away. I read, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I read 12 books while I was away. Let's see. I'll list their star ratings, what they're about, and how I felt about them. So the first book that I read while I was away was called The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. This is a H.P. Lovecraft retelling, I believe. It's a short story, or a novella. The Ballad of Black Tom follows Charles. He's a musician, and one day he's playing, and a man comes up to him and asks him to come play at his party. And it kind of follows him throughout this strange journey he has that night. I gave it 4 stars. It was very good. It was really interesting to read a H.P. Lovecraft kind of book with a black main character, because H.P. Lovecraft was such a racist. This is a fact that my girlfriend told me. He named his cat N-word man. And I don't mean like the word N-word. I'm saying the actual N-word man. Who does that? Like, what kind of... Anyway, it's very well written, and it's just very good, and I give it 4 stars. The next book I read was called The Best We Could Do by T. Bui, and I did look how to say her name. I think I've mispronounced it before. It is T. Bui, and this is a story about how her family came to live in America, and their journey as refugees from the Vietnam War. I gave this 4 stars. It was beautiful. The art was beautiful. The story was beautiful. The characters felt really raw and alive, and I felt for T and all of her siblings, and just all the things her family had to go through as refugees. Next, I read Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. This is a book about a boy who, when he's like 5, he is in kindergarten, and his kindergarten teacher gets the idea to have them write a letter to someone and then stick it on a balloon and kind of make the balloon float away, and see who gets the balloon and the letter attached to the balloon. It's told very non-linearly, so you don't learn that until the middle. It's not a spoiler. At least I don't think so. But you shouldn't care about being spoiled for this book. I gave it 3 stars. It was not great. It wasn't scary. You could kind of tell that it had been a creepy, no-sleep creepy story on Reddit. It was just not very professional. The writing was really lacking, and the ending was just boring. So I probably am going to unhaul this. I believe I still have it. And I finally read it. I know that in a video, I think it was for the last video before I took a break, I said that if I didn't read this, I was going to give away a book, and now I'm giving away a book. So next, I read a poetry book, and it is called Memories by Lang Leave. This I gave 2 stars. I was incredibly disappointed by this. Not that I had heard great things about Lang Leave. I had just built up my own expectations about her. And her writing was, it was... I guess poetry is a hit or miss for everyone, because poetry is very subjective. But this was just, it was very contemporary. I suppose that's not really an insult. It was just not, it was all about like love and like pain, and I'm just like, I don't relate. Like, I've never, it was like lost love, like loving yourself. It wasn't I don't know how to describe it. It was just not good. I give it 2 stars. Next, I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shannon McGuire. I gave this 4 stars. So good. My favorite of the Wayward Children's series. It follows Jack and Jill, I believe their names are. I think it's, a play on the story. It's a prequel to Every Heart a Doorway. It's before Jack and Jill basically came back to the Wayward Children's house. I forget what it's called. It's so compelling, and it's so cool to hear about how these girls get basically mistreated. It's not cool to hear about how they get mistreated. It's cool. I can't believe that came out of my mouth that way. It's very cool to hear about their story and to hear about how they came to be the people they are. And it's very well written. Shauna McGuire just writes very good stories. And the Wayward Children's series is like one of the greatest series I've read. And this is the greatest installment. I didn't get 5 stars. I don't remember why. But it was good. It was great. It was amazing. I would recommend it. Next, I read Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink. This is a book that was written based on a podcast. Joseph Fink also created the Welcome to Night Vale series podcast books. They're also books. I gave this 3 stars. It was not what I was expecting, and kind of dumb. The end was, not to give away spoilers, but the end was just like, it was all about the friends we made along the way, and the villain was just like our own hatred for ourselves. And I'm like, that's not what I want out of a fantasy story. If you're going to give me a fantasy sci-fi story, make the villain like an actual villain and not like a reflection on today's society, because that's so overdone and just tired. Like, stop it. Give me a good villain, and the villain in this is bad. It's not good. It's no. It got 3 stars though, because the relationship is really, really interesting, the romantic relationship, and just some of the characters were very well written. But I wouldn't say you should read it. I also wouldn't say you shouldn't read it. Just like, I don't know, take all of this with a grain of salt. Next, I read Into the Miso Soup, one of those, by Ryu Murakami. I hated it. It was 2 stars, but I should just bump it down to 1. I read this in part with chapter stacks and her kind of book club of reading all the most horrific books of the year, or for every month of a year. Anyway, it's about this Japanese man who's a tour guide for... Oh, I didn't even tell you what Alice Isn't Dead is about. It doesn't matter. It's not even that good. Okay, so Into the Miso Soup is about this Japanese man, and he's a tour guide for, like, a sex tour guide for like Americans that come to Japan, and he meets this man named Frank, and he believes that Frank is a murderer. And spoiler alert, Frank is a murderer. This is bad. Most of it is just this like creeping suspicion of like, ooh, this creepy thing happens, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, there's like throat slitting and like raping dead bodies. Excuse me, I should have put a trigger warning or something, but it's disgusting. I don't have a problem with disgusting things, but when they're just out of nowhere and like there's no lead up to it, and anyway, it's not a good story. It's bad. It's dumb, and I hated it. Don't read it. Then I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a young adult story that really shouldn't be young adult, just saying. About a girl who tries to get into this school, the synagogue. It's for people who are going to fight in the military, because she doesn't want to marry this man and like give him babies and, you know, the typical stuff that you find in like historical fiction about girl heroes. I gave this 2 stars, and I'm really sad to say that, because this was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I gave it 2 stars because the beginning was fantastic. The beginning is very much like girl gets into this magical school, and she does all this stuff. It's like it was like that Mulan montage of like do 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 2 feet the hunt, you know the one I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden it's just like war and death and rape and awful, awful, awful. And I gave it 2 stars and not 1 star because it's based on the rape of Nanking or the rape of Nanjing. It depends on who you ask and how it's spelled. And also just basically the horrible things that Japan did to China. And I found that element incredibly interesting. But it's also just not, it's just launched into, and there's not much of a lead up, and then all of a sudden it's just all this war, waiting games, like, and then there's magic somehow woven into that. The magic was not interesting to me. I found really the historical aspect the most interesting part. There wasn't a lot in the last half of the book that I really cared about. Yeah, it was disappointing, and I'm sad to say that. But I probably will pick up the Dragon Republic, which is the 2nd book in the series. I wouldn't say you shouldn't read this. I should say that you should know what you're getting into. And there's a lot of trigger warnings, for hard trigger warnings for war and death and just misery. Ugh. Yeah, it was hard to read. There were some parts of it that were really hard to read. So yeah, I gave it 2 stars, but I probably will pick up the Dragon Republic. Ooh, the next one is so good. Next one is Matilda by Roald Dahl. I've been wanting to read this. Okay, Matilda, the movie, was one of my favorite movies of all time, and I can't believe I hadn't picked it up, the book, until like a couple months ago. But I gave it 5 stars. It's about Matilda, this little girl who has a horrible family, but is incredibly smart and goes to school and meets a teacher who helps her thrive, and she helps this teacher in turn, and they form like this wonderful relationship. And oh, it was just so wonderful. Like, I can't even describe how happy this book made me. And it was like such a good follow-up to The Poppy War, because it was so like happy and light, and even though it dealt with a lot of tougher like subjects like child abuse, it was just so magical and fantastic, and I loved it. I want my own copy. Like, I got it from the library, but I totally want my own copy. So yeah, read Matilda if you haven't read Matilda. It's fantastic. It's just enchanted. It's beautiful. Read Matilda. Then I read the 3rd book in the Wayward Children's series, Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire. This book is about Renee, who is the child of a character in the future from one of the... Okay, it's complicated. So one of the characters from the Wayward Children's series, who lives in Eleanor's Wayward Children's home, I forget what it's called. It's a very long name. that character has a child in the future in a different alternate dimension who comes back, who needs her mom's help and like gets help from the kids in the Wayward Children's Home. And it's all very complicated. Something is a spoiler that I can't say for the first book, so I'm not going to spoil you for the first book in case you haven't read it. But you should. Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. If you haven't read it, you should totally read it. I gave this book 3 stars. It probably because it didn't meet all my expectations for Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I don't think that you can really follow up Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I'm very curious to see if the other books in the series meet my expectations, or my high expectations. But it was I liked Confection, or whatever the candy world was called, which was Sumi's world from Every Heart a Doorway. It was like a candy nonsense, very, very upside down kind of world. There's like a strawberry sea, like the trees are made out of like Pop-Tarts or something. Like I was just like, this is fantastic. Why couldn't I live here? Like I would love it here. But there was like problems going on. Anyway, and I liked Remy, her daughter. I just liked the characters from the nonsense world who were very nonsense. And they're also, all the other characters were also very interesting. The ones that were introduced, the new characters, the ones that were old characters. I loved them all. It just was not Down Among the Sticks and Bones. Very hard to follow up. So I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Building a Better Teacher, How Teaching Works and How to Teach It to Everyone by Elizabeth Green. And this is a book about pedagogy, how to teach children, and trying to teach everyone how to teach it to children, except it's not, which is why I gave it, I believe, either 2 or 3 stars, because it was very lackluster and didn't actually teach me how to teach children. It taught a very specific way of teaching, and mostly was related to math students or math teachers, which I'm not going to be a math teacher, I'm going to be an English teacher. And it also just talked about charter schools, like they went on a long thing about charter schools, which I don't relate to because I'm going to teach public school, I think. I hope so. But, like, it was just not a helpful book. I wanted a book about how to teach, and it didn't teach me how to teach. Like, I guess that's why I'm taking college classes. I was looking for an easy shortcut. But just not helpful. Wouldn't recommend it. The last book I read while I was away was Hex by Thomas Oldhoyvelt. He is, I believe, a Dutch author, which is why his name is very Dutchy and hard to pronounce. So I don't know if I pronounced it right. I gave this 3 stars. This is about a town, and this town is haunted by a witch. And when I say haunted by a witch, I mean everybody knows that there's a haunted witch, or a dead, like zombie witch walking around the town. And the town is called Black Springs, I believe. And everyone in Black Springs has to contain this witch so that nobody in the outside world finds out, because she can, if you hear her whispering, she can make you kill yourself. I was like, this sounds so good. One of the booktubers I watch, The Shades of Orange, recommended this. And I was like, this sounds like fucking cool as hell. Like, I'm definitely going to read this. So, let me preface this by saying I read Pet Sematary earlier in the year and hated it. Pet Sematary by Stephen King. It was so boring, and the big, like, scary surprise part wasn't that interesting or scary or surprising. So, you can imagine my disappointment when I walked into this, and it was essentially Pet Sematary by Stephen King with a witch. I don't know how to explain that any better, except if you haven't read either. I guess that's kind of a spoiler for, if you've read Pet Sematary and you haven't read Hex, it's kind of a spoiler. But you deserve to know, because I was so mad going into this. with this fascinating premise and expecting to be blown away, and I get some bullshit. It's just Pet Sematary by Stephen King, except done slightly better. Yeah, it's done better than Pet Sematary. I can say that for the book. It's got more layers, and instead of like 90% of the book being absolutely nothing and then 10% of the book being dumb bullshit horror, it was bad horror. It was like 70 in Hex. It was like 75% of the book nothing happens, and then the last 15% was just this absolute clusterfuck of like weird, creepy shit happening, and then they both have like essentially the same ending. But yeah, if you've read Pet Sematary, you've read Hex. It's not great. I gave it 3 stars just because the ending was just so out there, and also the premise was just so freaking cool. And I'm disappointed. I'm salty that I got Pet Sematary twice in a year when I didn't even like it the first time. Like, thanks, Thomas, old Hoyveld. Oh, my foot is asleep. Ugh. So I am going to announce the giveaway winner now. I got it all in this bucket. There's like 5 names. I felt kind of bad just because I'm like trying to give away books to people and like nobody wants this book. I know that I'm not letting you choose your own book, but like Sawkill Girls is so good. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Gaia Athena is the winner. Yay, Gaia! So Gaia, I am going to DM you on Twitter and ask for your address. I hope you're okay with giving it to me. And yeah, congratulations. So that's all for me for now. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, and you've liked them or didn't like them. Comment down below. Congratulations to Gaia, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!